Okay, sorry about that. Some technical difficulties. Economic development. We just basically have to cross the T's and dot our I's on the economic development master plan. It's actually importing a few of the pictures on that, and that finalizes that document, which will come before the city council in the coming weeks. We'll fine tune the incentive table. It's a standard incentive table for businesses. So the city council would give a table that would give the economic development department some discretion in their discussions with businesses as to what incentives could be offered based off the type of business. And it gives them just a standard straightforward approach for what they offer. And so each incentive doesn't have to come back before the city council. And they're working on that. The CRA, they finalized that, and now we're going to send that over to Cache County School District. The Cody has put that together. We had a good meeting with them, but that is being sent to them right now. The procurement and purchasing policy that will come before the city council in the next couple of meetings. So we'll go over that. Those are just updates in that regard. Business licensing, we met this week and it was actually a good meeting. We went over some of the options where it might streamline the process for renewals for businesses to renew their business licenses. Jumping down through here, we'll talk about human resources a little bit more. They're doing their year-end process, but we're also talking about the employee handbook tonight. Recorder, very busy with the budget revisions and then budget proposals, which we'll go over tonight as well. Jumping down through the library, they have a number of programs. They've significantly increased their programs right now. So I guess here it says dramatically increase their program. So right in line with that. But if you look at the newsletter and other things coming up, they have a number of programs that they're working on right now. Police have been helping us with the nuisance properties throughout the city. Hats off to them. We made a lot of progress in that regard. They do have a new officer, Michelle Clough, that they've hired. And they're fully staffed except for some of the crossing guards, which is good news for the police department. They've done a good job of recruiting in that regard. Then the fire station, we've talked about Station 70. That's their main station, and the RFP is going out for that soon. And Craig could probably fill us in more on that, but thanks to the fire department in that regard. And I went through a lot of those things pretty quickly, jumped through other ones. There's a number of things on here. Are there any other questions from the councilor mayor?
I just have one question. So with the turnover in city leadership, are we looking at redoing the compensation committee? Maybe that's a question for you, Mayor. I don't know if you're up to speed yet on that.
Yes, because we had one of the key members was Bruce Lee. And so if we swap out some of those, that would be the mayor's discretion to add another council member. Maybe when we get to that later in this meeting, when we talk about strategic directives, we can go over that, Mayor.
Okay. We have a list of those kinds of appointments for later in the meeting.
And I'm just not sure where we got with data collection on that and whether we're going to have to start over on that now.
A little of both.
Okay.
We made some headway in certain regards. In other areas, we might have to start over. Remind me when we get to that portion in the meeting, because we'll have to discuss that.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
We'll move on to our recognition of exemplary staff members. This one's a little bit unique tonight because I believe all of them are currently helping with the snowstorm. But these employees went above and beyond. This is from Jordan. They went above and beyond, spending time on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day away from family to clear roads in North Logan City. We're lucky to have such a great group working for the city. They are always willing to help where needed and go the extra mile to make sure things are done. Without guys like this, we could not have a city like we do. So on Christmas Eve, that was Ryan Campbell, Zach Root, Chase Argyle, Yeldy, Jeremy Stedman, and all of those same people were around on Christmas Day with the addition of Will Stedman. So Yeldy, Ryan Campbell, Jeremy Stedman, Will Stedman. Do we have any of those people here today? None. They are in behind the snowplow. Well, we appreciate it. I know that just speaking from personal experience, our roads get cleared really quickly and it's very helpful. All right, we'll move on to swearing in of elected officials. Oh, yeah, let's give those employees a round of applause.
Congratulations to the new members. I figured I'll stand in the middle of each of you. So if you want to stand up right now. Place your right arm to the square.
Okay.
Now you get all your cameras ready. You're welcome.
And I'm gonna stand to the side, so. All right. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations. It's now official, even though you've already been working.
Thank you, Judge Lors. And we will at this point excuse any paparazzi or family members who don't want to sit through any more of the city council meeting.
It's okay. You can just say it's my family.
The front row is looking restless as well. Thank you for your support. Okay, then we will move on to our first item of business. A public hearing to receive input on modifying the North Logan City Code, Title 12 Land Use, modifying the requirements for access and ingress and egress for new subdivisions. Spencer, you can give us some background on this?
Yes, yep, I'll step through this. If you want to pull that up, Alan, that draft is great. Yeah, so the Planning Commission has worked really hard on this ordinance, met with our legal counsel and also had multiple discussions. They did send it forward to City Council with a positive recommendation, the conditions being that there be a public hearing held in City Council. A public hearing needs to be held at some point. Typically, they're in Planning Commission, but they can be held in either group. So they gave you the honor of having the public hearing here tonight instead of Planning Commission. Just to walk through a couple of the changes here, this is in addition to our subdivision code in our land use section. So this applies to new development in subdivisions and what it's required as far as access and ingress and egress. This specifically applies primarily to those subdivisions that only have one point of ingress egress and kind of defines it a little more clearly in our code as to what that means. There's a little bit of a question as to where that measurement would be based from. So essentially what this is saying is if you have one point of ingress and egress, you measure from the last point where a road connects to a road that has 2 points of ingress and egress. So not just the new segment that's being added, but it needs to go back through existing road until it connects to a road with 2 points of access, if that makes sense. It's worded much more lengthy than that. There were two different strategies that were just explored in Planning Commission. The first one being a distance from collector roads as defined in our transportation plan. The more we dove into that, it was getting to the point where we're trying to write code based on specific examples and trying to make it fit, which didn't feel like the right approach, rather than taking the time. And it's really difficult to explain having one point of egress and measuring down existing roads in writing that's solid enough. That's why you see two paragraph 3s here. Those are the two different alternatives. So if action is taken, you would need to explicitly note which one of those could go through. One caveat to that being the language in, especially this paragraph 3, but the entire section. We were hoping to have gone through line by line by our attorney just a once over check. Obviously with the holidays workload being busy, we weren't able to get that for this meeting. So staff would recommend that we have discussion on this, but save time for a detailed review and any final red lines. One other thing that was considered by the Planning Commission, and I have it struck through here, but it's this stipulation. So in our current code, which is basically copied from Appendix D of the Fire Code, it states that anything over 750 linear feet for a dead end fire apparatus road, or in this case, subdivision with only one point of ingress egress, would need special approval. This little stipulation would allow a temporary dead end on a master planned road to go up to 1,000 feet. So basically it defines what that special approval would entail and solidifies it rather than leave it subjective. In discussions with Planning Commission, their recommendation was to not add that additional allowance up to 1,000 linear feet, and to just draw the line at 750 feet and remove the special approval requirement and just make that a hard line. That's why it's got a strike through it. That's in paragraph 1. You can see the purple lettering. That was one thing we were especially discussing. So those are that's an overview of the ordinance itself. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have it as well.
All right. Any questions from the council? And I would reiterate what Spencer said. I think what the planning commission contemplated is that we'd get a full sign off from Seth Tate on this ordinance. So, but we'd like to have it be a pending ordinance while we get that sign off. Okay,
Do you want any questions now or after the public hearing?
I can come back up after.
I think now is great.
Okay. I don't know if I have any. I was just thinking through it real quick.
Both then. Okay. Then we will open it up for the public hearing. Here are the instructions for the public hearing. Before you begin, please state your name for the record. Please speak into the microphone so that your comments can be recorded. Please limit your statements to 2 minutes. If you're speaking on behalf of those that are present, you may ask the chairman for more. That are not present, you may ask the chairman for more time. Please phrase your opinions in the form of statements, not questions. Please address your comments to the council, not to the public. The council may ask you questions about your comments in order for them to better understand you. If you have questions or need to discuss an issue, please meet with the city council members or appropriate city staff member before the public hearing where dialogue can take place. You may also provide a written statement as your input for a hearing. Do we have any public input on this matter?
Hi, my name is Alexis Alt, and I'm a resident of North Logan. Lindsay, I know you stated that questions are not allowed, but it's perhaps a rhetorical question, but something to consider. Is there some specific numbers in the revised code, such as in option 3A here with the 2,640 feet. And I'm just curious about the choice of 30 homes or 30 lots and the choice of 2640 feet, what the origins of those numbers are. Some of that seems quite specific. And so I was wondering if it was in order to help pending subdivisions get through the approval process more easily, and whether there are any concerns about if these changes are made, long-term safety of the community. Thanks.
All right. Any other public comments? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Spencer, would you mind speaking to that?
Yes, so I'll address the 30 homes first. That's a number that's set in the fire code. And Craig knows that better than me, but that's where we pulled that number from. That's a direct copy. As far as 3A, that's one of the main reasons I was and the Planning Commission in general was starting to feel less comfortable with that option, is that's 2 blocks. So that's where that number came from. But that was really discovered as trying to find ways to provide enough connectivity within our existing transportation master plan. So we only have a certain number of those collector roads. So keeping a reasonable distance between those collector roads and still making sure it kept it safe. Because of that, we kind of were taking a situation and writing code for it. It started to feel less like the best option, which is why I would recommend 3B rather than 3A that has that number. It's just a little more straightforward.
Okay.
Craig, I have a question for you. Maybe sorry to put you on the spot, but the part that was removed around 1,000 feet exception, I guess is what we'll call it. Sorry, Marie. It's the different C. It's throwing me off, but is it working? Can you hear me okay? On the exception of 1,000 feet, we had a discussion about fire hose length really driving that number. And I'm curious from your professional opinion, if that actually could be a benefit to have that in there to give the city some adjustment if safety actually meets those standards under that 1,000-foot limit.
Yeah, it's kind of which element you want to base your developmental code on out of the fire code. So the fire code in the road sections references 750 feet. The 1,000 feet of hose is more based on how the actual hose is loaded on the truck, which a lot of code is based on. We do carry 1,000 feet of supply hose. So the reference to the 1,000 feet is really to where hydrants are, not so much the length of road.
Spencer, do you mind going over what the original thought process was behind extending that to 1,000 feet, or at least providing an exception for that situation?
Yeah, so I think the main thing with that 1,000 feet, the main concern that they're trying to alleviate, it is very difficult in some places in the city to get sections of our master plan roads constructed, which, as you know, the city is not the main driver of most roads as they're built. They're mostly brought in with development. A 750-foot length, especially in some areas that are maybe zoned less dense that require 100 feet of frontage, that only gets you 7 to 8 lots in. And say there's a large span that's needed to be covered by a master plan road and none of it's connected. If we can stretch that 750 a little bit more just along the master plan roads, that may help in some situations get those master plan roads connected. That's the original kind of logic. We did want to make sure that was stipulated that that only accounted for temporary dead ends and only along master plan roads. But that was the thought process there. I don't necessarily think that either way is going to be a deal breaker for the city, but that was the thought process on allowing 1,000 in that specific case.
I think they got into some significant discussion in the planning commission regarding that as well, Spencer, where they said that as they were going through this, they started debating about where the fire hydrants would be, what the exceptions could be, and it became a lot more gray as they started debating about this. And so they finally just took a step back, correct me if I'm wrong, Spencer, and just said, let's go with the 750, because that's what's in the code. And the more we go down different routes, the more vague it becomes as far as what people can do.
And basically what that would do is, it doesn't mean that there's only 750 on our master plan road in general. It just means at that point, they'll need to make another connection. So it may mean more landowners need to work together to do developments a little bit bigger if they're going to do that. But yeah, Alan's exactly right. That was the discussion. It got kind of bogged down. They decided to stick with the 750.
Any other discussion on this or questions? Okay. I would entertain a motion on this. And would suggest that we stick with that original recommendation that we table it pending attorney approval.
I'll make the motion that we table adopting this access ingress egress pending the attorney review.
All right, motion by Craig. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, seconded by Emily. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries and the ingress egress code is tabled. All right, we will move on to the next item, consideration of a concept plan for the Smiling H subdivision, approximately 40 acres located at approximately 700 east, 2500 north. The proposed subdivision includes 111 lots in the R112 zone and is being proposed to be subdivided using the density determinant method.
All right, so I don't know if we want to go there on the GIS just to give a rough idea where it's located.
Sorry, let
Um,
me open that up.
Or we can pull up the concept plan either way. But I'll be brief on this. We've seen this subdivision several times, but just so everybody knows where we're discussing, right on 2500 north on both the north and south sides of the road. That's the land in question, just a block from where we're meeting right now. So really close to where we are. That land is zoned R112. It's not proposed to be rezoned. It's just being developed under that existing density. So now I guess we can flip over to the concept plan. And there are two options here that the developer has provided, and several points that I'll just briefly touch before we essentially turn it over to them. So one of the main points of discussion to this meeting has been this connection here.
Do you want me to open up the other one as well?
Yes. And then so you can see that's where the options differ. One shows a through road connecting onto 800 East, and this is north of 2500 North, where it's shown connecting onto 800 East. That would be a right-hand turn only, with a triangle curb wedge that would kind of push people to the right. The other option is a cul-de-sac, and that one essentially ends in a dead end, doesn't connect to 800 East. The other changes, if we scroll down, and this is the same on both options. Before, when this concept plan was brought to the city council, I believe 2 meetings ago, this land here, log cabins developments, and portions of these two parcels there. And I can come over here as well. This parcel and portions of these two were included in the development. They have not included those as part of this concept plan. And I know there are some concerns from the landowners that aren't included when they were as well, as far as that goes. But yes, that's the only change. Essentially, the lots have been realigned to accommodate that on the south end. And that's the same on both sides. I don't know. That's the bulk of the changes, correct? So
Yes, the only other one is that dead end, the road that looped through, as a recommendation from the former mayor, is that we just end that in a dead end because it had a redundant road going to the north, which really didn't provide much for the city. And so it could just end in a dead end regardless. Yes, and then both options, if I'm not mistaken, they had an option going out onto 2500 North. And looking at that, there are pluses and minuses with doing that. Pluses gives an extra access point, but it also provides an issue with multiple access points that are staggered going along that road, which create traffic issues and traffic concerns. While having rear lots facing a road like 2500 North isn't ideal. However, 2500 North would be a regionally significant road at some point in the future. If it is a regionally significant road, the CMPO actually encourages limited access and rear facing lots along these roadways for the free flow of traffic. And so, like I said, there's pluses and minuses to this as far as the design of this subdivision goes. But yes, that, as Spencer pointed, that access in this proposal and the alternate proposal have been nixed in this design.
yeah, and
Those are the changes that you're seeing.
And just to clarify, Alan brought up a point that reminded me. One major issue with this cul-de-sac option was it was getting over the ingress egress 750, and the 30 lots was the main one. It was 32 lots. They're down at 28 now with the cul-de-sac option. And then this one has 2 access points, so that doesn't apply. Yeah, just to clarify.
Now remind me again, we haven't done a traffic study to see, I mean, obviously there's the two choices here. So my question on concept plan approval, if it comes back and the cons, and they say that it's probably not good to have that right turn, can you take that out? But if you prove or you probably
Yeah.
need to decide that now.
So they have, and I believe the developers actually have some talking points they want to go over. They did get a traffic study done and they actually did it ahead of schedule. So typically that wouldn't be required to be reviewed till development plan, but they kind of got ahead of the game and got that done. So they will have some
remember
points to
this,
talk over there. As far as staff goes, the connection there because of the offset, it is essentially asking for variance essentially with our code because of the distance it's offset. And the logic behind the variance is because of that right turn only and the modifications made to the road to accommodate that. That's what's being presented. There is always the chance, and the reason staff is uncomfortable with this option and is more in favor with the cul-de-sac option is just compliance. So if everybody complied with this right-hand only turn, I think that it would be very clear that it would still be safe and maybe more safe and more connected. But there's just a concern of people going around that curb and then coming back around and essentially making an intersection less safe. Many offset intersections that had different degrees of modification have been being replaced in Logan City and other places. So that's why staff would recommend that cul-de-sac option. But like I said, the applicant does have a presentation, has the traffic study and numbers that I'm sure they want to go over with you as well.
What about plowing on that right-hand turn? How difficult is it for the plows to maintain around a T-shaped island?
I don't
that
know that
800
that
East
would be
connection?
difficult necessarily, but Alan's driven a plow and I haven't, so he can tell me.
Just north of here, I actually ran over a curb and went through their front yard, but that's for another story altogether. So asking me is not the best data, but I do know that islands in general are difficult. Depending on the snowstorm. If it's a light snowstorm like this, they're going to see it. They can go around it. If it's a heavy snowstorm, it could be difficult to navigate. The concerns are more or less with the snow though, because they'll learn how to do that. They can take care of that. And more just with the access and with the traffic study, correct me if I'm wrong, the current traffic study that they've done actually shows that this could accommodate it right now. If everyone abides by the pork chop or the right-hand turn is what they call it. And it could work based off of just raw engineering data is what they plugged in. They did do an engineering analysis on this, which puts them ahead, they'd have to do that at the development plan. But our city engineer had significant concerns long-term because if the study were to go to a 30-year study, at that point we're back at intersections failing. And so it's really looking at that long-term study. That's where the city engineer had significant concerns about the right-in or right-out only option.
Yeah, so, and I'm sure the developer can answer this, but I'm assuming the traffic study didn't contemplate a cul-de-sac at that 8th East 25th intersection. It did contemplate that? Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Spencer before we turn it over to the developers?
This is the plan that they are presenting, correct?
Yeah, there's the
Both
two
options are on
options.
the
Okay,
table.
the two
So
options.
The south side is the same in both options.
Got like
And then
6 of
there's
them here.
this connection with the pork chop,
Okay,
as Alan referenced it, and then the cul-de-sac option. So A and
Okay.
B. So if you make a motion tonight to approve this concept plan, you would need to specify which plan.
do you mind showing me A and showing me B again? I
Yes.
just want to make
Do
sure I'm
you have
voting on
that
the right one.
PowerPoint? The PowerPoint's really good.
Oh,
The PowerPoint
I'm looking at the
is
wrong
there,
thing.
but
It doesn't
it's,
show the bottom half. but at least-
yeah, and it's a different plan somewhat because originally they based it off of what the council's feedback was. And at that
Oh,
time,
you're right.
they took the existing plans and did that. The ones I'm looking at are in this latest plans folder. Here's the PowerPoint though, that shows the analysis.
Yeah, cul-de-sac and non-cul-de-sac.
okay, just.
We can specify
A
it
is the
that way
pork-
because
A
they
is the
weren't
pork
labeled.
chop, B is the non-pork chop.
If
Okay.
we're labeling, we'd probably say cul-de-sac is A and pork chop is B, and they'd probably say pork chop is B and cul-de-sac is, or A and B.
Which is funny, because on the
vice versa.
PowerPoint, scenario 1 is the non-pork chop and scenario 2 is the pork chop. So,
Okay.
yeah.
We'll
There you go.
just clarify exactly which one we're talking
Yeah.
about.
Can you let me know how far out? This is a 30-year traffic study. So
Let's do just, if we have anything more for Spencer, great. If not, then let's just have the applicant speak. Any other questions for Spencer? Okay, thanks, Spencer. So yes, if you just speak in whatever order you'd like.
Matthew Bishop. Joni, one happy new year to everybody. Congratulations to the new members, Mayor. It was a 5-year traffic study, which is standard. We looked at the very first council meeting that we came to. They asked us to, or actually it was in Planning Commission, they asked us to do a traffic study, so we did that. And when we opened up the traffic study, we felt as a developer, it would be better to come out on 800 and not and potentially even close off this access here, because we were trying to reduce the number of ingress egress near each other. So that was our concept and our thought process behind it. So when they asked us to do the traffic study, the city administrators had told us, no, we couldn't come out on 800 East. So I asked the Planning Commission if we could at least look at it in the traffic study to see if it was going to have a negative impact on the traffic flow.
okay.
So do you have the PowerPoint that we could
Yes.
throw up there real quick? So I apologize about Schedule A and Schedule B and whether it's the pork chop and not, but you can go to the. So scenario 1 is the no access and scenario 2 is the access. Remember, it's changed slightly, but we were trying to close off that 2,500 and that was the reason for it. Okay. So looking at these, couple things. A is great, B is great, C is getting a little, and D is when you start to really worry. So this is the offset intersection, but it's the westbound side, not our side. So it's A right now. So for those people having to come out and make the left-hand turn to go south on 800 East, over the 5-year period, it does get a little worse. That has nothing to do with us one way or the other. It's just the flow of traffic. Scenario 1 is down here. And as you can see, it's A and A. So there's no change over the 5 years. In scenario 2, which is what we were wanting to punch out there with the pork chop, also is A and A over the 5-year period. So there's really no impact on traffic over 5 years. Then the other thing here is that we wanted to take a look at, you can actually see what happens with time. And this is really important. I think that Lance, your roundabout, you can see right now it's a C, so that's kind of iffy. This doesn't have a roundabout, but when you put the roundabout in, it contemplated that and it took it to an A. So your city engineering and your staff has done a great job with the roundabout there at 800 and 2,500. So just wanted to point that out. The south entrance actually at our property starts to get worse over the 5 years. It has nothing to do with the upper, but it's just the traffic. So the essentially this just becomes a little bit more difficult. With ours, it's only 10 minutes or 10 seconds. With the cul-de-sac, it actually is 21 seconds, and that was their study.
The roundabout
At the no
or
no, no,
cul-de-sac?
this is our
Okay.
Cul-de-sac option. When we did the cul-de-sac option, scenario 1, down on the south side, coming out on 800 East, it actually had a longer wait. I asked the traffic study engineers why that was. They just how the numbers punch out. They run their scenarios after they do the traffic 10 times and then average it. And so it was worse with the cul-de-sac. Otherwise, essentially scenario 1 and 2, it's almost identical and not a whole lot of difference. So over the 5-year period, I looked at it and I saw I'm actually going to impact the southern portion coming out on 800 East, having the cul-de-sac more than I would if I didn't. I'm also able to have a nicer flow within the development. And if we can close off that 2500 access, less access coming out on 2500. So that was why we were proposing, even though it's causing a slightly different offset access, and hopefully the North Logan City, well, maybe it's the Smithfield people that, oh no, make the wrong turn and not follow, because I'm sure all the North Logan people follow all the rules.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not supposed to. So anyway, that's how come we wanted to present the options, because we think it's a better plan.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
What were the hesitations? Ellen, maybe you're the best to speak to this, but what were the hesitations about that 8th East access? Because I know just in the city council meetings I had attended previously, that was a concern.
Yeah, in the previous discussions, the data that Matt has presented is all accurate. And based off the 5-year plan, the city engineer agreed, like looking at this, when we originally studied this intersection, you can't see my cursor, 8th East and 2500 North, as they originally studied that intersection, they've done it twice in the past 10 years, the city has. The original study looked at it because of the danger of the intersection, the speed of 800 East. And then they did a second study because the intersection had a number of serious accidents as a two-way stop. So when they did that intersection study, they studied all of 8th East, 2500 North, and when they went through it, it was failing. You went through A, Bs, and Cs. This was it received an F on the grade. And so at that time, we looked at what was a temporary Band-Aid. And the city engineer went through several options, and he came back and he said that you could do a 4-way stop. It's a Band-Aid though. So we did a 4-way stop, and then they did the study again. It came back as a C. So it was passing, but not the best. And in a few years, they anticipated that 8th East and 2500 North would be failing. So when they brought that back, we went and applied for that grant, and we received an $850,000 grant to put a roundabout in at that corner, which will go in sometime. It'll take a while, but as they did that study, that was a 30-year study, and looking at that, it took it to an A for that intersection. But as the city engineer looked at this, short term, the pork chop, if people abide by it, is okay. It's still a quasi variance because it's an offset intersection, and the code doesn't allow for us to make a variance in that code. It basically just says offset intersections aren't allowed. Period. And Spencer can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's basically what it is. But then the city engineer pointed out in a 30-year study with 2500 North connecting to the east and all of the other roads connecting through, it could be a very dangerous intersection, meaning the pork chop, A, B, whatever we want to call it. Because as people go north, and it's a free flowing roundabout, people would start backing up, and people could be cheating, going left and trying to come out, and it could cause significant concerns. And the previous mayor's concern on that as well was, at that time, what would happen? Well, the city would be on the hook. We would have to come in, reroute the intersection, try and tie it in so it's not an offset intersection, and the entire dime would be on the city. And that was his major concern at that time. The mayor's, and then Lance's concern as the city engineer would be, over time, it would start failing.
Now, Alan, if you pull up the map, just not our map, just so you can show them better the offset, I think that it's be helpful. So you can see that so there is, I mean, it is a real offset. There's no question about that. The one thing that the traffic study also showed that we could go ahead and make, and it didn't impact the traffic, make a left-hand turn off of here, off of 800 North as you're going up into the development. We're okay still with putting a double, that whole hammerhead, so you couldn't make the left-hand turn in there. So basically, traffic couldn't turn in there to address some of the concerns that Lance had.
Can you clarify that a little bit more? What do you mean? Where would that hammerhead be?
The hammerhead would be here,
Oh,
allowing only left or right-hand turn
So that would be the only exit from that north part of this development. Is that right?
Well, there's an access road if you go back to either, yeah. We have a stub road up here at the top, so if and when the Daniels decide ever to develop their property, that they have a road to be able to tie into.
And that one would come out at 8th East, probably near North Park Elementary.
Oh, okay.
You want to go back to the other map?
Yes.
Just to help visualize.
Come out.
So we end right here. Then that road would then come up here and come out to the north side of the tree.
Okay. I guess my concern is just having driven on 8th East, especially during school hours, is that there's not a lot of room. So when I'm thinking about having that be the primary exit from that north portion of this development, I guess I'm just having a hard time just from a anecdotal standpoint, picturing how that doesn't create a problem, particularly when there is a roundabout. You know, if there's someone turning left into there, does that back up the traffic?
Well, that's what we're saying. We would prevent somebody
Okay.
from turning left into it
Okay,
with the full hammerhead. We wouldn't just do a right out and a left in. We wouldn't allow that because
Okay.
of the city engineer's issues and concerns. So that's why we're presenting both. I know there's some, pros and cons to each scenario. And one is Spencer's, really it is against code or not in code to have an offset intersection. So that's why we're here. One other thing I think we should address basically on both plans, Alan, if you pop it up again. Two corner lots. And those two corner lots up here on the top, they're roughly half acre or 1.4 acre lots. We have the setback to meet the 80-foot width. We have the setback at 30 and 35 feet, but they're bigger lots. But again, would be a slight variance to existing code. So in whatever approval of the city goes on either one, that should probably be factored into the approval saying, and it's okay, correct?
I can speak to that. I was going to mention that as well, just to give a little bit of background. So essentially on our corner lots and cul-de-sacs, what's being referenced is the required width of a lot. So at a cul-de-sac, the required width of the lot doesn't get measured at the cul-de-sac because that's very small typically, and then it wedge shapes out like this. What's being requested is our setbacks were recently lowered, the front setbacks, in an effort to allow people to build their houses a little closer to the road and have more backyard to work with from 30 to 25. So at a 30-foot setback, they measure, or on the skipped ahead of myself. In a cul-de-sac, the width of the lot is measured at the front setback instead of at the road because of the wedge shape. So what they're running into is with their lots that are on those angles at 25 feet, they don't quite meet that required width of 80 feet. At 30 feet, which was our previous setback, they would meet that width of 80 feet. And those lots, just for some context, are around 1,500 or 15,000 square feet. So just under a half acre, third half acre. So bigger than most of the other lots. What they're requesting is that there be a note put on the final plat that it states specific lots by number and says the front setback for these lots is 30 feet instead of 25. So they'll have a little longer driveway. They have a little stricter front setback. It's a little bit bigger than every other lot, but that would allow them to have the measurement that they need, essentially, if that makes sense. So that's being requested as well. And I was going to mention that. We talked
so
about
that
that. but-
essentially would be a variance.
Yes.
Okay, for
Yeah.
just those specified
I
lots.
think there's 4 lots, right? 4 lots.
These here. 35.
So those would be noted to be 35-foot front, and the other ones would be noted to be a 30-foot.
And is that under both scenarios, the A and the B?
Irregardless.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
I was waiting for you, Roger. I don't have any questions, Matthew, but I will say that this, I don't know which one to call it. We'll call it concept 10 for the PDF, Alan. This is a really good effort to fix the issues that I had concerns with last month. And I just, I'm kind of gathering that maybe we all feel somewhat similar, but the pork chop idea, your name's Alan, the pork chop idea, I think is very uncomfortable for me. It hasn't changed even walking that property the last month.
That's fine.
So for me personally, I really like what you've done with this option 10. I know it does add that second ingress on 2500 North, but you remove one on the south side, which I think is actually a good benefit and a good compromise to what we were trying to do there. For me, I don't see any major concerns now seeing this one. I don't know if we're going to take action on it tonight, but I did want to mention to you personally and Olo that we had a lot of calls. I think all of us did over this subdivision. And one common thing that was shared, I think as people learn the process for this, everybody started to understand the rights of the developer to build here. But one common theme was, what's the quality going to be? And I know you guys aren't assuming this goes through in the future and you're certainly not under obligation. It might be a benefit to just hold an open house to show your building standards, bring in some of your materials, show people what you envision this neighborhood to be and the quality that it could be. Make sense?
Absolutely.
So,
one, I think the backers behind Olo, I don't know if you're familiar who they are, and it's not that I want to name drop, but they're community people, high standing in the community. The last thing they want is to have their name disparaged because we did a schlocky development. Part of things that the new council members may not know, we're going to end up putting a fence along 2500 and coming here. So to really try to make it a nice development so that you don't have, kids playing in the background or in the backyard, ball rolls out there. They don't have that issue, or at least it's not a big concern for dad out there that their kid's going to run right out in the street and get whacked.
That was going to be one of my comments. As far as the design, I don't have a problem with the design. I am still uncomfortable with that on the 8th East. 8th East is so narrow, with no curb and gutter, and 25th is so wide. It could be a 4-lane road in the future, which wasn't evaluated as part of the study if that was a 4-lane road and things like that. But I was going to mention, just as it moves forward, an idea of a common themed fence all along there rather than every property having one cinder block, one wood, one chain link. A common fence
in
would
the
be great.
notes, it actually notes it that we were going to do that.
That's
So it's
great.
part of it. And interestingly, I had a city just member come up to me after the last meeting and didn't want the fence.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to
Yeah,
please everybody,
that is difficult. But I've seen other developments and where it's all one subdivision, one common fence along a
Right.
major collector road like there is.
And
is
a
much more
quality
helpful.
fence as
Right,
well,
a
Yeah.
quality.
not a
chain link.
chain
Other than
link.
that-
Are you not okay with that?
I'm not,
I don't know
but
if you guys have seen Olo. I mean, Karchner Homes makes beautiful homes. Olo makes a very nice home. It won't be vinyl siding. We'll have it at a different level to justify, a quality development.
that's kind of what I'm hinting at,
yeah.
Yeah, so
So-
we'll have CCNRs in there that specify because, this is 111 lots and Olo may not build 100% of them. And so, we'll have it. So at least we know that there's a quality level that all builders that come into the development maintain.
Is this an HOA? You said
It's looking
CCNRs.
like no.
Okay.
We have some slight issues. But it's not our issues. The city is requiring along the south side of 2500, we have to have 8 feet of asphalt, blacktop.
Multi-use path.
Somehow loop into an entire big thing that North Logan is doing. It was fantastic that you guys are planning ahead. But if we have to maintain that and have to do something there, if we don't have an HOA that contributes some money to maintain it, mow it and make it look pretty, then then you're not going to be happy with us at the end of the day. So it would be a tiny HOA, like an annual $40 or something like that, just to do that side of things. But if we didn't have that requirement, I would see no reason for it.
Okay, thank you. All right,
If there's no other discussion, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we accept the concept plan listed here as number one with no access onto 800 East on the north side. We do have access date on the south, and with the variance on the setbacks for those corner lots.
all right.
Second.
Motion by Craig, second by Roger. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, we will move on to item number 4. The consideration of the release of the warranty bond for the Chapman subdivision. Alan, will you give us background on that?
Yeah, this will be, well, sorry. Let me go to where the Chapman subdivision is. The Chapman subdivision took about 10 or 15 years to complete. However, it's a very minor subdivision. It's this right here. So it's basically this parcel right here. And you're at the corner of 16th East and 1900 North. So kind of that point where you go up the canyon. It's right there on that corner, and it's just these 4 or 5 lots. And it was just the improvements on 1600 East and on 1900 North. Again, there was a multi-use path, again, that will tie into a larger network of trails in this area. What you're approving tonight, or considering to approve, is the release of the warranty bond. When someone comes in to do a subdivision, they bond for the subdivision. They bond with the city for a surety and security for the subdivision. The city requires 110% of the value. The extra 10% on top is the warranty. So when they're all done with their subdivision, all the improvements are in. 1 year after they're done with everything kicks in, and they have a 1-year period until the developer requests that the city come out and inspect it to see if all the items are okay. And the vast majority of the time, you'll have about 99% of everything that's withheld. There may be 1% of things that have to be improved at that point. This particular subdivision, after that 1-year warranty period expired, our public works crew went out, they inspect everything. They've come back and they recommend releasing the extra 10%. That's that warranty bond for the subdivision. So all the improvements are in, they've withheld for a year, and the public works staff recommends releasing the 10% warranty bond.
Okay. All right, I don't see much need for discussion on this unless there are any questions. I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we return the money.
All right.
Second.
Second by Buzzy. Marie, you can cover us on this one. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. 5th item, consider an emergency resolution to accept the material terms of the One Ohio subdivision settlement pursuant to the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding and consistent with the terms of the July 21st, 2021 National Opioid Settlement Agreement.
Say that 6 times fast.
I cannot. Alan, you gonna give us background on this? I mean, I could give you a little bit.
You're much more capable of giving a background on this one.
This is just an opt-in to what is essentially a class action suit on behalf of the states. My understanding is that we can opt in now and choose to also pursue claims of our own as a city, but this essentially just puts us in line to collect monies from the opioid settlements. I know that the original deadline to do this was, I believe, January 2nd, and that's been extended to January 22nd. Just based on my understanding, this is just, it's a good placeholder. I don't anticipate that we would on our own pursue a claim, but it's monies to go toward abatement. that will be filtered through the state and then through cities that are participating.
Counties as well, correct?
Hey, so I'm not sure on that, but
Okay, sorry. Maybe I'm
that's a-
not misunderstanding that.
That's a very good question. But the recommendation for this came from the Utah League of Cities and Towns, and that's kind of like a coalition of a body of cities throughout the entire state. More than 200 or 300 entities that participate in that. And they have legal counsel that kind of makes recommendations for cities and things like this. And they normally don't recommend very many things for the city, but they did recommend this. And so that's where it's coming from.
Do we meet the prerequisites for that? We do? Okay.
All right.
So do they do like a trial balloon that lets us opt in or out, or?
yeah, you can opt out later, or it doesn't preclude individual participation, as I understand it. And this is an 18-year payment plan. As I understand as well, some states have opted to allocate money to counties and cities. Ours is one of those.
Your first one.
Come on, Emily.
Gosh.
Do it.
I motion that we accept the terms.
All right. Second.
I'll second.
All right, second by Joni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes.
Our mics are such that you have to speak right into it, so not only get recorded, but so that the people watching on YouTube and all that can hear.
Okay.
You really have to be good about speaking right into the mic.
All right, be bold. All right, next item, consider approving proposed updates to the North Logan City Employee Handbook. Alan, would you mind
Yes.
giving us
absolutely.
background?
So this is several months in the making. About 3 years ago, we revamped through a 1.5-year process our entire employee handbook. We had 2 interns, city staff. We went through the entire lengthy process of revamping all of our personnel policies, bringing them up to date, bringing them into compliance with what we were doing. And it was a chore and then some. What you're seeing now is a few updates after that. So after we got done, we get to the point, it was all approved a year ago. And now we've noticed a few different things. Those things, just so you know, just a brief summary, is little things like, one, part-time employees, we wanted to really benefit them. We have a lot more part-time employees now than we did 10 and 15 years ago. They're the ones that do the bulk of the work. I hate to say it, but literally they compose the ones that are out plowing right now, doing a lot of the work for the city. And we wanted to benefit them. And one of the things that we offered them was holiday pay. Then out of nowhere, we realized that if we offer them holiday pay, we have to offer them retirement. And so that didn't work out very well. So we had to scale that back. Little things like that is what you're seeing here. 3/4 time employees. So we didn't have any 3/4 times employees when we got done with the employee handbook. We do now. And in order to do that, we had to change a few things that related to benefits, like a 3/4 benefit for employees in certain regards. So we had to change little things here and there. Going through, there's endless grammatical updates that Christy Hansen, she's not here right now, from the library. Hats off to her. Holy cow. I didn't know how many grammatical errors I could write into a policy, but she found all of them. So hats off to her for doing that. And she did spend a considerable amount of time. So I have to thank her for doing that. The other things are work from home policies. In our original employee handbook, when we literally like 2 years ago completely nixed any working from home. We'd had problems with that, so we just flat out said no more. Then COVID hit. That didn't work at all. And so we had to revamp that to bring it back in line with what would be a good policy. How would it work well? And so we looked at other cities and what they're doing. We kind of followed that. 1 or 2 other things. There's a recruiting bonus that we put in. As you know, right now with the compensation committee and things that we're working on, one of the biggest things we're running into is recruitment. It is extremely hard right now, and that is an understatement to recruit staff here to several departments. Ironically, if we labeled an internship, we have a flood of people that want to come and work here. If we say this is an amazing full-time position with very good pay and extremely good benefits, we get no one that applies. And so like going through these things, we have to have different strategies for how we go about it. One is a recruitment bonus, and it's basically a referral bonus. So if employees bring in other employees to work for the city, which has really helped out with a lot of our part-time labor, and we give them a bonus. And so looking at that, we've implemented those types of policies or recommended implementing them. One other thing is we've added Juneteenth as a holiday. We felt that was important. As we looked through this, we looked through all the holidays. It was added in as a holiday at a federal level, and looking at it, basically the premise behind it is that the Civil War had ended and they weren't ending slavery. So we wanted to say, well, why don't we get ahead of the curve this go around and give some benefits recognizing this holiday early on in this. And so in talking with the employees, it seemed like a good option. They were very in favor of this. And it really is one of those benefits that doesn't cost the city a lot to provide holidays for employees in recognition of that. So we thought it was a very good option to go through that. I think there's just a few other things like leave from work and how they come back. And really that's the gist of it. That's the major components that you're seeing of the changes without having to go through a 150-page document. There aren't really any other major components that you're seeing or things we're trying to sneak through, like major increases in pay or anything else. So just.
How many pages is the handbook?
The what, sorry?
How many pages is it?
The actual employee
138.
handbook is like, it's probably like 70 or 80, but the last year, the state came down and said we had to implement our fraud protection policy. So we could either put that into our employee handbook as an appendix with all the different appendices that are associated with that, or we could put it into our city code. It felt weird putting it into our city code to say this is our fraud protection policy for the citizens of the community. It's not for them. It was for the employees of the city. And so we put it into the employee policy, but it's very distinguished. It says this is when you hit the fraud protection portion. So it's really you look that portion up if you need to go to those portions of the employee.
I'm in a lot of
handbook.
organizations there. I've never seen one that long. I would recommend a Reader's Digest version you hand the employees because no one's going to read that. I'm not ripping on the handbook, but I'm just like, you want the most important parts. You're telling me you're sitting there and you want to read. I mean, even if you take it home, I mean it.
So what Roger's bringing up is the issues with onboarding, which are extreme right now. And what we have interns that we're working with right now and bringing them on and giving them a Reader's Digest version, introduction to the staff. What are some things, what are expectations from the city in general, like our mission statements, our core values? What are we trying to implement? Things that Roger's bringing up. And how do they go about looking through the employee handbook if they needed to do anything? Absolutely, Roger. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay, so substantively Juneteenth and some at-home working.
And three-quarter time policies to
Okay.
define what the benefits are.
All right, any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion on this.
It's a resolution that you approve. Sorry, I didn't include that.
So the person will be motioning that we resolve.
Yeah, what's the?
Make a
number?
motion to approve resolution.
Do you
Okay,
have a number on it?
What's the number, Scott? 2202.
I make the motion that we approve resolution 22-02.
all right, seconded,
Seconded
by Emily, all in favor?
I,
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. We will move on to consider a resolution approving the dates and times for city council meetings in 2022.
This is just a standard formality that we do at the beginning of the year. It's a requirement by state code that the city council go through and adopt what their schedule is going to be, a rough schedule of what you're going to do this year. There are just a few changes. The March meetings are recommended to be shifted to the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays. And then because of the Utah League of Cities and Towns, which we would recommend at least a few of the city council members, those that want to attend, and the mayor, if she can attend, go to that training. Those trainings are vital for both staff and city council members at that point. to really know what's going on in cities. And it's really good to bounce ideas off of other cities. We're not inventing the wheel on everything that we do. Other cities are dealing with growth and other things that we're going through as well. So that's the recommendation. Other than that, it's just basically the first and third Wednesdays.
Why the change in March?
The March change would be because
Oh,
someone's
I
going to
did
be out of
that.
town.
No,
We're
we're,
gone the 9th. That's our anniversary. So that's okay though. Well, probably enough quorum. We're not, it's nothing special on those meetings planned, right?
It doesn't matter about
Right.
anniversary. You'll be here then. Yeah, that's. fine.
No, it's already planned. It's pre-planned. It's non-refundable.
Oh, okay. You're better.
Haven't you ever
husband.
stayed at Spring Hill Suites? Travel lodge.
and we can adjust these, you know, for later on in the year. This is just to get a general schedule. So,
Yes.
all right. Any other input on these?
Can you put a time limit on the meetings, like in this resolution? Because I'm willing to do that.
I think we just
Each
have to
meeting
all
can be
work
no longer
together.
than 2 hours.
We just cut it off.
Yeah.
What
Turn off
you
the
would help that
lights.
is if you approve a resolution right now and we move forward.
Yeah,
with
this is
the-
going
Yeah.
south. I move that we approve the resolution approving the dates for the council meetings for 2022.
All right, Buzzy motions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Roger. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. We will move into the city council work session items. First, a discussion of strategic directives and goals for 2022.
I can give a very brief update, and then this is all the city council and mayor at this point. As you can look through the city council's action item sheet, it really starts out with a mission statement. So our vision, what are we trying to do? What are we trying to accomplish? And then it goes to strategic directives. Those are directives, fancy way of saying goals. You just sound smart when you say strategic directives. It's goals from the city council and the mayor driving what the staff should do to develop their action items. And so really this is what it boils down to, what you would like to do, what you'd like to see. And it's really just this year. This isn't a long-term period. It's goals that we intend to accomplish throughout 2022 calendar year. And so going through this, as I received some feedback, each year they're very similar. These ones are a little bit more comprehensive, these goals. There's a lot about communication. We've already gone through a few of these items and they're making updates currently. And then as you go down through here, I'll just briefly touch on these. These are really for each of you, but long-term growth, how do we address that? How do we adjust our general plan and other things associated with that? Economic growth, very big focus. This was the same as last year. We've had a focus. I think we have a more strategic plan at this point. A city center that kind of goes into the growth as well and how we master plan those there. Trails, what are we going to do? Each of these items though, and then down here it gets into committee and council assignments. But I just had a question for each of you as you go through these and as you look at those. This is a very good list of things that we need to do, things that we can improve on. Some of these things we might already be doing, but we need to do better. And that's a question for each of you and things you'd like to accomplish that we can pass on to the staff and how they can help.
Yeah, so this is basically the list that I gave to Alan. So this, I've submitted my input. I will just by way of update, we have already met as a communications committee to really start implementing some of these improved communications, primarily through social media, just using social media more. The intent of that is that we have a clear message and that we prevent city employees from giving the same response over and over to questions that they get repeatedly. I think it's low hanging fruit. I think it's an easy way to demonstrate our willingness to interact with citizens. But we're already well on our way with that, I think.
Just to add to that, I did see this meeting advertised on Facebook tonight before the meeting. I hadn't seen that before, so good deal. I haven't been paying attention, and have I? I'll pay better.
Keep
I'll
it
pay
up,
better
Marie.
attention.
She's not letting you give Lindsay that credit.
But I don't
All right,
understand.
Come on.
I don't understand Facebook, but the things that we're implementing, the things that we want to do, correct me if I'm wrong, and the algorithms of Facebook, as you go through this, the more we're posting, the more it will be at the forefront and top of everyone's list, and they'll receive a lot more information at that point.
Well, I
So
think
that's a good-
informally as well, when people know that they're going to see those posts, they will look for them. Like right now, I don't I don't necessarily go to the website, and we're going to be coordinating this with the website as well, our new website. But right now I don't even try because it's not there. So we're hoping to change that.
My kids inform me that Facebook is for the 45-year-olds and older.
people.
It is. It is.
I didn't know that, but it
And we
makes
also
sense.
are doing an Instagram account for the
yeah.
youngins.
That's the young one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so those will
That's how I
be,
keep a track of it.
those
when
will
I'm at
just
the
be both
library.
posted simultaneously.
I can't keep it straight.
We're trying to cover everyone. And then the newsletter is for we'll just say like the traditional set who really wants a hard copy. So we're trying to cover everyone and including those who don't necessarily get access to the newsletter in hard copy, Aspen Meadows, some of the apartment complexes. So we're just trying to cover everyone with this. And I think it's not a lot of effort. We're looking into getting an intern that can help with this. It's not a huge effort. Emily's been really willing to take a big chunk of that. I'm going to be posting to the North Logan City site so that we're taking a little bit of that burden off of Marie. I spoke with UB today about, coordinating with the police on that too. Just so that we're all coordinated. Jesse Howe was in that meeting, so rec. Jordan is planning on giving us updates, just really timely things too. I think it's an asset that we aren't using to post timely things. You see it informally on the neighborhood Facebook pages. What's going on here? I think we could just head that off a little bit. Okay, so that's communication. Any other things that you guys have input on?
The only thought I had, and actually this Smiling H subdivision kind of brought this to light. Sorry, Marie. That mic is more sensitive. I realize because I don't. Anyway, sorry, off topic tonight. But found a lot of value the last month meeting with a lot of people and educating about how developments work, the process, the different phases, what we can approve and what we can approve based on the phase. I don't know of a good way, but I wonder if we can somehow offer that a couple times a year to say, if you really want to learn the process, come on in and we'll walk through it. So, when 120 home subdivision comes in, what the rights are of the developer versus what the city can consider. And in what phase.
Phases.
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
phases.
Yeah.
Doesn't, Alan said he has a flow chart,
Yeah.
right? Is that?
So where did Spencer run off? to? I'm too short. I am way too short to see over the dashboard, but so Spencer.
I'd like to see a flow chart.
Spencer's done an
Agreed.
amazing flow chart, and I can probably, if I can Google
See,
that. I
while
can
you're
look
going
that
up there,
up.
my
You better
thought is,
email that out.
as our communication with you guys, like committed to making this better, and we want to help too, of course, but it seems like we might actually get interest in that if we're actually marketing it well enough. And
Yeah.
so,
And our idea, we can do classes as well, but our idea was that we do periodical posts about educational things.
nice.
So with Jordan talking about what to do if you have a water leak or what to do, in this situation, those can be a little bit informal, but then I hope that we can have a place on our website that's static. So you can say, go here, just understand the development
Cool.
process, but definitely.
Yeah, and a flow chart, a place on the website. There are a couple other standard questions, and I can potentially I have an intern that's working with me on several different things throughout the city, potentially have him make them into graphic formats. I know I talked with Joni about this before. She has some good examples of things that are easy to read that maybe we can lean on, and hopefully get something like that on our website to help educate in a simple way rather than the legalese code that's on there, kind of simplify. So
That felt pointed.
but I can
I was thinking the same
I mean,
thing.
it's, I'm the one that writes it, so, yeah, no, but we'll look to get that. I can forward that flow chart already,
Yeah.
so you can use it.
Please.
And
That'd
then
be
we've
really
got
great.
additional things we can get
Cool.
figured out.
I think in addition to that, you're gonna have probably one of your biggest items as far as communication is going to be growth. Like that is huge. That's gonna be one of the items. As Lindsay pointed out, that would probably be one of the primary focuses, indirectly or directly, with a lot of posts that are coming out from the city. Another thing is just the positive posts that need to come out from the city to just explain some things throughout the city that they may not be aware of. We even did this as a city staff. Are you aware of the things offered at the library? Are you aware of the things offered in the rec department? Are you aware that North Logan has the largest rec department, but we also have the 4th largest budget? Things of that nature. Are you aware that we have the fastest plow crew in the entire state of Utah? Things of that nature where someone can try and beat us, but they can't.
Yeah.
And so things like that we need to post, but it doesn't mean that we're not trying to improve. So the post would say, hey, we're doing these things, but if you would like to help us in the communication is your street something you can't even pass right now, let us know. And this is the method for how you'd let us know, those types of things. So really just the communication that you brought up. It would
Yeah,
be
and
easy.
we talked also about putting employee spotlights on there,
Yeah.
summaries of meetings, perhaps doing citizen spotlights. So, but I think just for right now, we can improve pretty drastically with minimal effort, even just by having, just sharing, how you can watch the movie, or sorry, the meetings online. One of my aims is to prevent people from accusing us of trying to do things behind the scenes, because really we want input. I also want to just have an efficient way that we're addressing issues that we see over and over. So Buzzy, instead of you responding to 15 citizens explaining the development process, let's have a place where they can go, so.
Love it.
At some point, I'd love to meet with planning commission and really address long-term growth. Just set forth some goals. I believe we'd at some point had quarterly meetings on this. Is that right? I would love to continue those so that we're at least 3 a year, so that we're on the same page in addressing growth. These are my goals. I don't really need to, I could sell you on all of them, but are there any additions?
I think with our meetings that I think we all have about the same desire. And part of what I hope can help, we were just starting to grow rapidly. And so, I feel like we need to give everybody credit for where we're at. And so there's some great things that we can do. One of the things I feel it would be really helpful is our design standards. And so if we work on that area, it makes it a lot easier for the developers. And then it will also take some of the pressure off of all of us because we know exactly what is allowed. Right now, I feel like we're kind of catching up a little bit because we haven't had to deal with some of these new issues. So that would be something I would like to tackle.
Okay, that's great. In terms of, if there's anything more on goals, we can come back to it. But in terms of committees, I also want to just kind of maybe make some assignments tonight. I welcome your input, but I had spoken with Emily at some point about doing economic development. Is that fine with you?
Yep.
Buzzy had spoken with you about maybe switching from library to police.
Yeah.
You okay with that?
UB, I don't know. I'm not sure how to take that, but we'll call it good.
Okay, we're gonna have to do some relationship repair there. Craig, are you okay to stay on the cemetery committee?
Sure.
Roger, are you okay to stay on police as well? Okay. I'd like to have some continuity there. Parks, Rec, Trails, is there typically a city council person assigned to that?
Yeah, and that's one that's kind of slowed down in the last few years as we've really been booming. Which
Yeah.
is ironic. We probably need a committee there to kind of at least help provide guidance. And just so to the council members know, some of these have different requirements. Some of them are like quarterly, semi-annually, once per year, or some of them are monthly. So some of them are a little bit more intensive as far as the committee assignments and how often they meet. The Parks, Recs, and Trails, we used to have that committee and we went over just general items about every other month that we met initially.
Okay. Any takers on that one?
Do you know
Oh.
when, was it usually, did you guys usually meet in the afternoon or is it evening?
Yeah, that's-
Is
We
it-
could meet
Me
at any
too.
time.
The
Okay.
trails one I know typically was 3 PM.
Yeah.
I'm happy to continue on trails. I don't,
These, several of these committees, just so people know, these are advisory committees to the mayor.
oh, so that would be redundant.
Could you be, I'd
Well,
like
you
you
could
to
be
be
really
your vice
nice.
versa.
So you could be on any.
I'm trying to be
and
an
all
example
of the committees.
to.
I wouldn't,
you
I wouldn't
guys.
mind doing the public works one, and on that, I had a suggestion. We've been working for 3 years on that waste treatment facility, and we're gonna start flowing wastewater into there on June or January 10th.
Mhm.
And it's a big deal, a lot of money, and we've had to put a lot of money in our part of the sewer system. I think we ought to arrange for a tour for the council to that waste treatment.
That'd be great.
It's a pretty fascinating, it's wastewater. It can't be that fascinating.
We have our we have our quarterly meeting on Monday coming up. I will be at that meeting and I will just bring that up with them at
Yeah,
that.
probably
meeting.
wait for warmer weather, maybe in March or something, but it is a pretty
Might
fascinating.
be better in the frozen weather.
Either way, just bring your COVID mask.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Regardless, I'll just put it that way.
It is quite a facility, that's for sure. It's been a long time
Joni,
coming.
I was thinking library. Would you be willing to do library?
Well, my daughter works at the library. Is that a problem?
No. No.
How many
No, but
committees can
over,
you be on? Two?
over time,
well, we have
the
about
issue is more
10
with
full
employee
time.
handbook
Okay.
regulations, not with you being on the,
Well, and
you're all over the library regardless, just so you
Yeah.
know that.
Well, and as I understand it, I don't think they changed this, right, Buzzy? You weren't a voting member currently. We
That's
talked
probably up for
about-
debate for you,
Yeah.
because I don't think that the board, were positions filled? I don't think they have been, and we were in discussions about that.
Right.
So you could appoint a council member as a voting member
Okay.
of the library board.
Okay.
So
So may or may not have power, Joni.
if it has power, I want back in. though.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. That's totally
It kind of looks like, I don't know, there are a couple of these history trees, Pioneer Day, Planning Commission. Any takers on that? I think that.
I
is
mean,
actually-
I'm already watching all the
Okay.
meetings and summarizing them anyway, so I
Okay.
might as well do it.
So
Does that mean they want me to show
that's a
up to
big
every
job.
meeting?
it is a
Okay.
big job.
In person? Okay, cool.
I
You
think
can- But you
ideally,
can probably do both. Ideally, you'd want someone there because it provides a lot of guidance and it ties the discussion into city council. It's kind of like someone carrying the baton into city
Oh,
council.
no, that's fine. I just have been watching them online. So I
But-
just wondered if you want my face there, my face will be there.
yeah,
but
I
if-
think that is helpful.
Okay. no,
Because
that's
then you
fine.
can participate potentially. We would talk to Brad occasionally
Okay,
in
no,
planning
absolutely.
commission.
I'm already,
So it's really helpful.
But I would say again, like it was some of those things, though, if you can attend, I mean, the few meetings that you can't. if you
Yeah,
can
Brad
attend
wasn't
online,
100% either. So
Well, we
Thank you.
could divide and conquer if we had to. I mean,
Yep.
it's not like it
I
has
can
to
always
be,
ask for somebody to set
yeah,
for me
I
or
think that's
something, you know?
actually a great way to do it, is to just let us know if you aren't going to be able to be there and
Okay,
see if someone else could take your
we'll see how it
place.
goes.
Any takers on Parks, Rec, Trails, History, Trees, Pioneer Day?
Sorry, what does the tree committee do? I'm just unfamiliar with that specific.
It's very
committee.
prestigious.
No, I just,
The
It's
tree
actually
committee is
really
actually a required committee.
Yeah,
'cause we're a
oh,
Tree
okay.
City
I was kind of
USA.
surprised that they
It's
weren't.
remarkable.
So what their primary goals are, I mean, there's several different things, and we actually created a tree ordinance and a street tree ordinance when we first established this. Now a lot of what they do, they could still push forward a street tree ordinance to the next level, and that's almost requiring street trees in new subdivisions. We never carried that all the way forward. It is an option. But most of what they do is more education and Arbor Day. So if we have tree plantings throughout the year, which we usually have several, we'll get together and we'll even have an Arbor Day festivity with that. We have to spend a certain amount of money of our budget on trees every year, directly or indirectly. And we have to have tree planting activities. And so that's what the tree committee is usually involved in.
It's led mostly by parks, right? Like, or driven
Yes.
by parks.
Yep.
There's a windstorm. Do they come cut your trees in your yard?
You could, Roger, if you'd
I'll
like to
be
be on
tree- I'll
that
do
committee.
tree-
All
I'll do trees.
right, yes.
I mean, I'm on 3 committees, so I think I need to not be on anymore. Thanks, Spencer. I got his approval, so.
Okay.
I can do
Parks.
parks.
Okay.
I feel like Craig
I like.
looks the most like a pioneer person.
Pioneer Day is really just
He
a
is.
celebration.
George's got little.
I'm just putting
enough.
Craig, you don't really need one for Pioneer. That was a suggestion I think from years ago. I'll come right out and say the history committee is someone that needs to be there to help with that committee. That was established by Lloyd. And we've had the history
And
committee
we'd
for a
have
few
to
years.
jumpstart that.
That would be good.
Craig, you will?
Restart that.
Thank
Start
you.
having those meetings.
History.
Pioneer Day probably doesn't need one. It evolved. Our Pioneer Days evolved to where it's humongous.
It's kind of like
We-
pumpkin walk.
Yeah, we literally have a crew of all the staff. It used to be like one staff member and we'd sit down and chat about a few activities we were going to do. Now we have the largest parade in the valley, and then after it, we have massive activities throughout the entire day. And so it's evolved into a very large event. Whereas beforehand, it was mostly just citizen driven. It was just the council member citizen, and it's kind of a small activity.
Okay. I want this also to just be an ongoing discussion in terms of city goals. So maybe if you haven't had a chance to look through these, I can probably clean them up a little bit as well. But if you have additions to this, I'd encourage you to just kind of take January as an opportunity to say, where do we want to go? Where can we improve? Because I think, I have certain goals, but I'd love to hear your input as well. Okay, I think that's probably a good enough discussion on goals. This next one, you're gonna love it. Keep your hands up for this. Discussion regarding a potential schedule for the mayor's message portion of the North Logan newsletter for 2022. It's kind of urgent that we need a February message ASAP.
We
So
always
whoever
look at the
volunteers.
newest
You know
members to
what?
give you the
I
first
I
option
would
to
really
introduce
love
yourself.
to
What's
put.
wrong with you?
Introductions.
I
makes sense.
feel like it's really good though to maybe see an example of a great message from a
Roger.
Roger it
I
is.
I
My wife is a
second that.
Crystal.
Roger, are you down with that?
When is it due? The 13th of
That'd be
January.
Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Okay.
200 words. No, it's easy.
Okay. I'll do that.
Awesome.
It says it's due the 15th of the month. Sometimes it's a couple days later, but when there's holidays, and things like that.
Did you have Mark?
I don't have any preference.
Do you want to
wherever.
just go down this row?
Yeah.
Craig, do you mind doing April?
Sure.
We'll do Buzzy,
Yep, I have no
June.
Summer's a good month. No one reads it in June. so- Yep.
Yeah, then we'll do Joni and Emily.
She it's on.
Wow.
I'll tell you right now, October is the easiest month. So whoever takes
Pumpkin
that,
walk?
because that's pumpkin walk.
That will be Emily.
Yes, I love the pumpkin walks. That'll be great.
Right. Oh, it starts back. over.
Roger.
Yep.
I don't get two because I volunteered the first one. I'm under deadline, so.
I'm
But it
fine to
defaults to
do
Craig.
December. Is that what Damon had done in the past, or did he move from something else?
You just flip November and December if you wanted to, so you didn't have to do 2 months in a row.
Yeah, let's do that. So who will do November
I've heard you do
is the
December.
question.
I'm fine to take November.
Yes.
That's
a
the thankful.
Thanksgiving
That's the
one.
thankful message.
Do you
Yeah.
have anything specific you would like us to talk about?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
I think that potentially, I will not be that
It was
big of a
me, Marie.
dictator. But if there's something pending, we can talk about
No,
it.
I just wondered. I mean, if you do, please let me know because I'm happy to write.
It's a long-
Coming up with my own topic
That's
is a
fine.
hard thing. so-
November seems like it'd be a good, easy message.
I agree.
Gratitude.
It's always a
Yeah.
yeah
Okay, perfect.
gratitude.
Let's not belabor that anymore. All right. Discussion regarding a draft department head 2023 budget proposal schedule.
Oh, I'll go quickly through this. And I need the council's feedback on this, but as we go through the budget schedule, when it says FY 2023, That's the budget that starts July 1st of this year that we're in right now. And it would go to the following June, through June of the following year. And what it is throughout these coming months before May 4th, by the first meeting in May, we have to adopt a draft budget, municipal budget for the city. Again, that's a draft. It does not have to be finalized. And then in June, we have to adopt the final budget in one of the meetings in June. And so this schedule basically just puts us online where each meeting you'll see 2 or 3 department heads come in and they'll present their budgets or their wish list. They come in, they just present it to the city council. They go over a few items. When I was first here, it was like an hour long for each department. It's probably more like 5 minutes to 10 minutes per each department as they come through. And so I just wanted your feedback. This is roughly a schedule. It kind of lines up with what budgets are kind of easy to prepare. I hate to say that. Sorry, Spencer. You're the easiest budget to go through. But then as you get down to the bottom, you hit like facilities. They depend on all the other budgets to develop before they can even develop their budget. And so that's pretty tough. And then you hit general governmental and a few other things that we have to wait till the end to approve or to propose. And so this is just a general schedule. It's showing you a layout unless you have issues or concerns with any one of these dates, or if you're seeing anything you'd like to see swapped around, just let me know. But this just gives the department heads a good anticipated date of when they need to start preparing their budget. And Scott, thanks to him, he's taken the budget and he's added another column. And what that is, that's just the column for this next year. And they go through and they put their proposed dollar amounts all the way through that budget. And so you'll see that. And when they come before you, just be prepared to ask several questions. The only advice I'd give is don't ask about how many paper clips a certain department's purchasing. Ask specific details about what is this budget, this account for. Like if you see something that says travel and training, what essentially is that for? If you have other questions, let us know. The difference between this budget and in the past, before about 2016 or 17, is each departmental budget is almost treated like an enterprise account, whereas revenue and expense. And so we show that in each department. Keep in mind that the vast majority are just part of the general fund. So not really separated in revenue and expense, but that's the way we treat them, because we put a lot more ownership in each of the department heads. They run that department's budget with revenue expense. They concentrate on revenue now. It's something that we didn't do until 2016. But we say there's a revenue component to these budgets that you need to be leery of and pay attention to. And so just as you guys are familiar with the budget, it is complex. It'll take a while to learn. I learn new things every year. So just if you have questions, let me know. And then just the department heads will stand up. They'll talk about a few goals, what they'd like to accomplish, and why they proposed a few different budgetary items.
Maybe one comment, and I don't know if you'd request this of this staff, just a suggestion. We had so much talk about extra funds, HARPA, PPP, and then we heard that if there could be even a discussion prior to that this department didn't use any of the extra, or this is used up, because we kept going back to when we get to this next year, we don't have this and we're going to be short this. And I think just an overall, where that was so much money into the city, how much is still there? Because now we're down to, this is our money, this was created from tax revenue and so forth. I don't know if that's something they do or you do in part of the budget process.
So part of that, one of the ongoing items, and we've talked about that in 2 city council meetings in the past 2 months, where we have an ARPA item as part of the agenda. And we go over that specifically because of what you just described. It's a very unique and probably short-lived budgetary item.
Disappears in 2029.
And just so you know, in general, we receive 600,000 this year. We'll receive 600,000 in the next fiscal year, roughly. It's plus or minus on top of that. That money has to be used for specific items. And CARES Act was more restrictive in some ways. ARPA is more restrictive in some ways. ARPA probably has less guidance, but it comes flat out and it says you have to use it for infrastructure and a few other items. So we'll go through that. That's a very good recommendation. The other thing that we have to be leery of, and a lot of cities don't realize this is very scary. When it comes in with money that may cause inflation in our economy. But when we get money like that that comes in the city budget, we need to be very leery that that is not long-term. That gives you a short-term sense of confidence in your budget. It's very dangerous to have that there. And so like Roger said, we need to define exactly how that's going to be spent. A lot of it this year, what we're planning on, we're looking at police and fire and covering the costs that we've done in the past, looking at infrastructure for water and sewer, and then also helping with even costs that help with remote learning and education through both the city office and the community center. Those are going to be a lot of big components of this ARPA, at least the initial proposal. Remind me about that though, because we'll need to put
It's
that
just
on
nice
the
to know that
agenda.
this is, I mean, we're back to normal and there's no harp. I mean, I understand we're identifying those, but
Yeah,
it's nice to know this is how much we get and, because we,
Yep.
We have discussed a little bit in the new city civic center. Are they designing an EOC in there?
so
Can
that's
some of this money be used for that?
That's a very good question. And yes, it can. And so
thought it
that's
could.
another component of it, the EOC, the education component. That could even be discussed with the police station as well.
Oh, yeah. that may
If
be a
we
good
if
spot.
we need to
It
talk
just
about
doesn't
that.
function well with our change in the way we function out of that fire station.
Yeah, that's what works well now. But like you said, long term, there's probably another more viable option. If we get a backup emergency generator is the key for our
Oh, for the,
he's talking about Craig's just going to start throwing out acronyms as if he uses tons of acronyms every day. The EOC is a fancy name for the Emergency Operations Center. If we have an emergency, the personnel throughout the city would come to a centralized location where we have a strategic plan for how we accommodate emergencies. And because of the fire department, police department, and the other departments at Public Works, administrative staff like Marie and Mary and Debbie, when we went through that this last time, North Logan ranked the highest in the county on our emergency response planning and how we handled that simulated emergency at that point. So hats off to you guys for doing that. And that's a very good point, Craig. I'll write that down.
All right. Schedule looks great. Any other input? Okay, then we will move on to reports from city officers, boards and committees. I'm new to this. What's the hierarchy?
wherever you
Kind
want.
of
Usually starts back
Yeah.
there.
Start in the back and work towards the front.
We
Okay.
get UV up quick and out.
Okay,
So
Doesn't work at the buffet table every night for like Christmas parties and such. Congrats. Tonight was the night. It's official, right? Welcome. You don't stop shaking as Buzzy alluded earlier. It just happens. Depending on what we're talking about. So we finished our calendar year of calls of service that dispatch keeps track of for every agency throughout the valley. So our ending numbers for 2021 between January 1st and December 31st were 6,215 calls of service this year. That's more than we had last year by 160 calls. And if you look at it, we're about a week and a half to get 160 calls through the agency. So as I report these weekly stats to you, such as this last go round, we had since November 28th to January 1st, 316 calls of service. So that kind of just tells you that 160, we're averaging about that every week and a half, if you will. So we were over and above by about that much time. So I'll have more statistics later on. I just got these numbers obviously the other day. So as we came into the new year, so we've had a lot of discussions about winter overnight parking and the enforcement and whatnot. And I didn't have numbers the other day when we met as staff at the city offices. So I ran those numbers from November 15th to January 1st. There's been 55 parking citations and 160 warnings for that snow removal overnight parking.
And just to interrupt the chief, our streets department gave a big shout out and a thanks to the police department because it really has diminished the number of people parking on the streets. And it's actually very dangerous for a plower to go around someone's parked on the street. It is very difficult to see them when you're in a blizzard condition. And so thank you, chief, and thanks from the streets department and everyone involved.
Yeah, no, I think that, thank you for that. It was nice to know that what we're doing is actually helping the other departments, especially the snow plows. There's still some identified problem areas that we're going to look at, but that is a work in progress. So we did hire under the COPS grant that we received. We have hired an individual. Her name is Michelle Clough. She comes with a couple years of road experience and she started on Monday. We are now doing an admin week is what we call it. Basically, it's an orientation for the, coming in, looking at our forms and meeting with our investigators, seeing what their processes are, and dispatch. We have them do a lot of different things during that first week or so to get them oriented with the police department. It's something I felt that was important because instead of throwing them into a car and saying, get a witness statement, they don't know what a witness statement may look like for North Park. So we go over those things during this period of time. So we're excited to have her. She's going to actually be there tomorrow night. Buzzy, tomorrow night, 6:30, Police Commission, very first meeting you would have if the mayor so
Yeah.
chooses to see if you can be there.
I think that works. Where are they at the police
Right at the
department?
police department, yes.
That's
up
a
in the
long
front.
drive.
I know, especially with the roads as bad as they can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. so
Okay,
that's-
6:30 tomorrow night, and I apologize, I
Yeah.
didn't know that name ahead of time, otherwise I'd have included you in that email.
Cool.
But she'll be sworn in along with 2 other officers tomorrow night. And so we're excited. Our numbers are full for our staffing levels right now with what we've been approved for. So I truly appreciate all the support, North Logan City Council, the citizens, Hyde Park City, their citizens there in Hyde Park have given the police department to get us to this point. So just know we'll continue working to better ourselves every day. So any questions for the police department? I guess traffic contacts, just so you know, I can finalize those numbers with you as well. November 28th to January 1st, same time frame, 240 traffic contacts during that time. So
I was one of those contacts.
Uh-oh.
yeah, I wasn't going to say anything. Anyway, is there any questions that you may have for me related to the police department? And just know my phone and office is available to you anytime. If you have a question, time, night or day, you can reach out to me, text or email or phone call. So, but if there's anything I can answer for you tonight or.
Roger, is there a dress code tomorrow night?
Just, uniform. They give you,
You get a uniform?
you
I'm
for
pretty sure that's
uniform.
illegal, right?
That's a little
Like,
bit.
to actually,
you
Tight
wear it during
tails.
city, just
Oh.
the meeting. Just
A little bit.
just put on when you get there, though. You certainly can't drive home in uniform.
I will need a
Usually
bulletproof vest, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of those ordered for some city employees. They've requested them. So
Okay,
thank
thanks,
you.
Huey.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't even know.
Spencer's
Spencer,
hiding.
please, make it easy for me.
Isn't he related to you?
Okay,
Throwing us all off tonight.
I'll send you a link to the license. which you have a direct link, and I'll send you the- in case.
okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Linda, do you get us time in the sun? Okay,
haven't seen each other for so long.
I know. Marie?
No, just.
We'll get that going.
That was so mean.
His wife will get right on. it.
Yeah, we're good. I'll get my rough draft and she'll polish it.
Okay,
And then you always skip Alan when you're doing this part and then you just come together. Because he adds another half hour. in his part.
think
we
we're
are
done
coming
and-
up on 2 hours. You have 10 minutes, guys.
It'll be 10 seconds.
Go for it, Alan.
Well, and
This is
with
it.
that from Roger, welcome to the new city council members and mayor. I will skip Roger after that, but then going on through, I usually just give an update on upcoming city events. This time of year, we don't have as many city events, but there are some. You just need to look at the website, the newsletter that Marie puts together for the library. There's a number of events on their website as well. And then rec department as well. Things coming up. We'll just update this periodically in city council meetings. And then just if you have any items they have questions on, I know we've tried to share some of the files. We share some calendar items. Let me know if you're not receiving them, or just let me know. There's no way you're not receiving them. So just let me know if you have questions or concerns about anything, any of the council members. Thank you.
Okay. True to form. All right, Emily? Anything?
No, sorry.
Joni?
Do we have a grant writer for the city?
That's a very good question. We don't have an official grant writer, but what we do is we basically allocate it to each of the different departments. So like, it's ironic, but Scott helps out with a lot of them from the financial aspect. So for RAPS, we receive one of the most. In parks, we receive one of the most in the valley, or we are the most in the past 5 years. Streets, we received the most in the valley for the past 5 years. North Logan's number one. But other grants are obviously available. It just shows that there's endless things available for the city. But we don't have a grant writer, but each of the different departments can just participate in that.
Okay.
Those grants.
Just a question to Joni, did you both get the email with the agenda to the,
My email address has changed.
We had
That's
to
the only thing.
Yeah, we had to hack it for Joni today, but we got it. Thank you, Google Drive, for your ultra security.
It worked.
All right. Are we on, Buzzy?
Are you done? Sorry, Jen. Okay. Along with great meetings, you usually get some shirts and hats with North Logan.
Ooh.
Got your back. So yeah. But no, nothing to add other than
Yeah,
it's
bring it.
it's nice to have you three here. I'm really excited.
Thanks.
So it's
Yeah,
gonna, it's gonna be
I'm
fun.
excited
We're gonna have a good time. So hopefully it's not all serious. Thanks, Mayor.
Craig?
Just had, and this probably is a question more for Scott. We've been about 6 months with Cal Ranch in that building down there. Is that helping with our sales revenue at all? Have we seen any bump there? Not really.
One of the issues is that there's an agreement regarding some of their revenue that comes back to them for the first year. And
Oh,
so,
okay.
yes,
We're still in that first year.
We're still in that first
Oh,
year.
okay.
I did talk to their owner.
Yeah, how they doing?
And he did see, he said across the board positives from moving to North Logan. Positive with employee morale, circulation, and sales have increased significantly after moving to North Logan.
Good, okay.
That's awesome.
I was just wondering. I'm good.
Okay. All right, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded,
Second.
third, Roger. Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Roger and I. Roger.
I was third.
Well, well done.
My mother-in-law
Thanks.
brought cookies, so
I still want to
Awesome.
drink cookies. Take
They
it
are
from me.
good.
I am not going
Yeah,
to.
yeah. It's my wine.
her daughter's Kelly Marshall. She sells these down at Loves to Cook. So
Yes.
Oh, I will.
Because we're all.
You want one?
I know, it's that's my cookies.
I already have three of them.
You had three?
Not this plate
Those
here.
don't count.
I'm probably the only one here that remembers and sat through an awful lot of city council members with Alan on the council.
Oh, yeah, he's great. He gave me some tips.
He's a good man.
One of them was this.
It's better to be quiet.
Doesn't work for me, so.
I seen some heated meetings back in there. We were in a little tiny room in the west end of that building up there.